What you can't be with prevents you from being. What you can't be with prevents you from being. So what is it that you can't be with? Just take a look for a moment. Are there people, situations at work, certain things on the television or media, or circumstances in the past, situations, events, things going on internally in your own thoughts, your own emotions, feelings and sensations of the body, your own actions maybe? What can't you be with? Just take a look for a moment and just see. What are the things that you avoid, that you don't want to be around, that annoy you? These are the things that you can't be with. Now, we want to look at this in a new way. So we're going to use this sentence, what you can't be with prevents you from being, to assist you in creating access and opening to self-expression or being where you normally cannot be. Let's understand a little bit about what this means more thoroughly. What you can't be with is a form of limitation. Just think about it logically, right? If I can't hear what this person's saying, if I can't feel this feeling in my body, if I can't be with this circumstance in life, then what that basically says is I'm at the effect of an external cause. That this thing is bigger than me, and my beingness, I'm withdrawing my expression of being. I'm contracting and saying, no, I can't be here. And I shrink down. Now, this isn't necessarily bad or wrong. It's just something we can explore and see where in our life are we limiting our self-expression, our power, our ability to create and to act and to be responsible for, take charge of the things in our life that will allow us to further our sense of accomplishment and to achieve those things that are most valued by us. So let's just take a look at what we can't be with. Let's better understand this. Remember, it's a limitation and it's a form of resistance. And limitations and resistance are part of life. It's important to have limitations, important to have resistance. For example, if my fingers were to grow to 10 feet long and there wasn't a limitation of the length, that could be a little awkward, a little strange. So limitations have their use and have their function. But as a human being and inside of consciousness, our consciousness, what we are aware of and what we are experiencing, we can actually trap ourselves and limit and bind ourselves in a way that reduces the possibility for accomplishment and creating what's most important, as I said. So we want to explore this honestly, without any make wrong or shame about the limitations that I may discover within myself or that you may discover within yourself. This is a simple exploration, this particular conversation I'm having with you right now, an exploration for where you may be shortchanging yourself, so to speak, and inhibiting the possibility of being. So again, the things that we can avoid being with, that we do not want to be with, that actually then prevent us from being, are things like events, various people in our lives, in the workplace, at home. There could be the past and whatever has happened there, and our own thoughts, emotions, feelings and sensations of the body, the results that we create, the very actions that we've taken. We may not want to even look at the actions that we've taken in our life, and the various meanings that we have for things. We may not realize that we don't want to be with certain meanings that we hold. A lot of this stuff that I'm pointing to creates an unconsciousness, an inability to really even be aware of the way things actually are. And the other thing we can do is use stories. We can blame people. We can make wrong the situation, the events, ourselves. We can have interpretations about what we think happened that may not be the actual case. All of these keep us from being with the events themselves, the circumstance, the situation, the person, or our own experience internally. And what's at the root of all of this is pain. The only reason we would withdraw from being with something is because we experience some degree of pain. And so rather than trying to force our way into being with things, which I know a lot of people coaching and trainings have actually suggested or intend, I found a more simple and gentle way. Because pain is at the root of what we won't be with, right? Think about a relationship that I don't want to be near that person ever. If you were to explore all the way to the bottom of it, you will find out that there was a specific painful experience that you went through with this person. And everything else you say about the experience of this person, is really secondary to what's really at the bottom of it all, which is the pain. And so the way that we can start to be with things in our life and start ending this non-beingness, this self-limitation, is by exploring the source of pain itself in our own body, in our own direct experience. And to do that, we're going to have to temporarily let go of the stories, the blame, the make wrong, our various interpretations about what happened. And we're going to have to feel into the experience of our body. And I've been doing this with clients for quite a few years now, and it's really powerful, extremely transformative. And it gives tremendous amounts of freedom. If the pain is still there, recorded, and is the reason that you can't be with something or someone in your life, you are owned by that. It's like a prison that keeps you bound and keeps you trapped. And now I don't say this as a make wrong. I really have a lot of compassion for the pain that people go through that leads them to be in this kind of stuck position. I myself have experienced this many times in my life. And I'll give you an example or two. Witnessing my mother get abused severely. Her nose was broken, flattened on her face. She had blood coming out of her mouth. Her lips were broken and bleeding everywhere. She was bleeding through her nose. Her eyes were black and blue and bloodshot. She got hit so bad in the face by this man who was her boyfriend at the time, and I observed this, and the pain of that was terrifying to me. I didn't want to be with that situation, and rightly so. It's a shock to the nervous system, to the brain, to everything that I know about life. And that shock was so painful and so hard that I just didn't want to be with it whatsoever. I began making up stories and fantasizing about harming this person who hurt my mother to overcome the sense of inferiority that I felt in that moment, that sense of weakness. So by fantasizing about harming him or taking him out, it was a way for me to compensate for this feeling that I felt. I didn't want to be with this feeling of weakness, this helplessness. And later on, I got involved with gangs and crime and then drugs. And it was this downward spiral, all driven by this painful experience that I simply did not want to be with. And it may not be so extreme in many people's lives, the type of pain that you go through. But regardless of the extremity of it or how bad it may seem, there is painful things that happen to us. And when we decide in that moment that we can't be with it, and for whatever reason we decide that we do, and that can be discovered, it prevents us from being with some part of our life. And in a way, we start to shrink back from life itself. And that shrinking back from life itself prevents us from having fullness of power and freedom and a sense of fulfillment, really. We start kind of constraining the way that we're going to see life and do life, and it limits what we can be, basically. It limits what we can have in our world. And many of us want more. We want to experience more in our life. We want better relationships. We want more income. We want more fun. We want more freedom. We want to travel. We want to have that life that we see other people living. And it's really important to us. And yet we don't seem to be able to get there. And we don't even really know why. And I'll say that fundamentally, it's that there's many things that you can't be with inside yourself and in the world. And it's no longer in plain view for you. This has now become an unconscious condition of the mind and the emotions and the body operating in their own avoidance strategies. What you can't be with prevents you from being. And it's not just about not being with the thing that was painful. It ends up becoming I'm not going to be anything in life that might lead to this pain again. And so you'll start limiting yourself in ways that are detrimental, that are not helpful, that will keep you from succeeding and achieving and accomplishing what's important to you. So one of the things that we need to look at is how we start to avoid being with what really is in life. And there's a series of things that we tend to do, and it basically involves language, the way that we speak. We use language to avoid these painful situations and go unconscious. I used language in my own mind to fantasize about harming this person who harmed my mother. And it was a way that I avoided being with what really was there. At the bottom of it was this sense of inferiority, this terror, this fear, this pain of witnessing my mother get harmed, and then the guilt and the shame of not being able to help her. And so I was avoiding those terrible feelings in my body, and I used language. I created stories. I imaged in my mind what I was going to do. And that's language too. Language is more than just the spoken word, but it could be the images that we create in our mind. But some of the ways that we use language are in that we tell stories about what happened. We make up things about what happened, our own version of it. We blame people. We blame the circumstances or events. We make people wrong, right? We interpret what happens. We have our own version of what it is. We don't actually express our feelings. We express our interpretation. For example, we can say like, my boyfriend rejected me, and rejected me is not actually what happens. He may have said some things. He may have decided that he doesn't want to be in a relationship anymore. But to say he rejected you is really an interpretation. It's not what you feel. What you're feeling is the wound of him deciding not to be with you anymore. That's really what the pain would be. And that wound will have you say things like, he rejected me. And when you say he rejected me and you speak about what he did out there, you don't have to feel or focus on what's happening in here, in your own body-mind system. And so because the body-mind system can experience pain, we use strategies to avoid being with that pain. Now, as an inner coach, I lead people gently and from an empowered stance and from a really good feeling place to start to invite into awareness the pain that they've been avoiding. I invite them to experience that pain, witness that pain, feel that pain, not as the pain was and it's how painful it really is. They actually begin to realize that by welcoming it, honoring it, a relief actually comes. Rather than experiencing pain, they start to find themselves relieved because they start to find themselves able to be with something they were resisting and they were avoiding, which actually creates a greater pain, and that is the pain of retraction and the pain of suppression and the pain of apathy, of just being at the effect of everything else in that moment. And that's a pain. That low emotional state is a lack of freedom, and it's painful and it affects and impacts our life. And it creates a long-term kind of pain where we can't go after what's important to us. We're stuck. And so by being with these moments that we decided we couldn't be with at some point, we start to expand the possibility for being our full self and totally expressed and totally alive. And it's really transformative. We go beyond the forms of our limitation that we have developed growing up in the world, and we begin to see that there's a tremendously large amount of possibility available to us. We feel more open, more alive, more free within our body. And when we feel that freedom in our body, we are able to take actions we ordinarily would avoid taking. We're able to make sales calls if we're an entrepreneur and we need to get people on the phone and get some deals happening. We can actually take on a new career that we maybe were afraid would never open up for us. The pain in our body that we are avoiding prevents us because of the stories, the blame, the make wrong, the interpretation, the whatever avoidance strategy we have going on, prevents us from going after the things that would benefit us because we begin to project that pain might happen over here. Our effort to avoid the pain is so intense and so severe that we never get to really go after what we want. So what you think you can't be with isn't you actually thinking at all. It's a reaction. It's a condition that runs you. It owns you. Like I said, it's a prison. And so through the work of inner coaching and our events like the Core Encounter, you can begin to be with what you have been avoiding being with. And now you can start to experience a new level of being like never before. So I'm Vince Polito. Check out thecoreencounter.com. It's a beautiful event that can transform your life and create freedom like never before. I hope to see you there, and we'll talk more.